I'm super excited to be here, Eric. Thanks for inviting me.
Hey, you're welcome. I first wanted to start out and learn a little bit about this meetup group that you created in London. This is a huge gathering, right? Talk a little bit about the genesis of what that is
Sure.
and what it is today.
Sure. So now it's the second biggest business meetup group in the world. We're just over 27,000 members. And I started it at a very, very curious time in my life where I was literally afraid of my survival. I was very close to living on the street. I'd actually built a quite successful business, then that I sold. And that was one of the worst decisions I've ever did. Not necessarily selling it, but not having more things in, prepare like a plan B in place before I sold it.
Yes.
I was just overconfident and thought, I built this successful business now. It's going to be no problem for me building another business. And suddenly I was in this horrible situation where I couldn't pay my rent. Right?
Oh.
I was not going to go into like several things were happening that just didn't go well. And suddenly I was just in this horrible situation. So I started the meetup group, and in the first couple of years, it was absolutely horrible. I no money and very few connections in London, but because of my copywriting skills and my networking skills, and actually also events running skills, it took off and it started growing fairly well. And after 3 years, I've tested a little bit of Facebook pay-per-click and got a little bit of money from one of my friends to start putting into Facebook. And then it just blew up. I mean, literally from one month to the next, we doubled our attendance from around 65 people to the events to about 125, literally overnight. And actually in one of the slowest periods of the year in the middle of summer. And as they say, the rest is history. So we became the biggest in Europe, and now we're the second biggest business meetup group in the world.
So is this similar to like a BNI network group where people get together and exchange expertise, or is it more of a training group where you actually are training people on specific skills?
Well, it's both actually, but I would say we're very different. Our energy of the events are very, very different, and we try to be as much different from BNI as we can. Not anything bad about them, but for me, they're a little bit boring and they're very like stiff format and all that kind of stuff. And we try to be exactly the opposite and attracting a younger crowd of entrepreneurs. And in fact, some of our early campaigns would said the most unboring networking event in London.
Oh, that's good.
Right. So that's kind of, and because of that, we attracted some fun people. That's the kind of people I like to hang around, right? So because of that, we have like incredible energy at the events. And I would say the only complaints we've had throughout the years, I think we had like 3 or 4, was always from people over 55. So I realized relatively quickly that I'm not going to advertise for people over 55 because they don't like our energy. The younger crowd loves our energy. Right. So what we both do networking events, just purely networking events. We just hang out and have fun. And then also talks with top entrepreneurs. And sometimes we do like light workshops, but it's not any heavy trainings. I mean, obviously we use the groups to promote some of my trainings and some of my partners' trainings and so on. But that's kind of a little bit away from the meetup group, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And so as I understand
Eric,
your trajectory is that you retired, you took some time away, you went down to the Caribbean, and then you got back into marketing, to helping businesses. What pulled you out of retirement back into the world of digital marketing?
Well, I mean, what pulled me out of marketing it was a bad decision, and well, several bad decisions. So first of all, the money I got from selling my business, the way I sold it was I got some money up front, but then I was going to get 20% over 5 years. And the problem was that the people took it over, they ran it into the ground almost instantly.
Oh, no.
So suddenly there was like 20% of almost nothing. So I couldn't survive from that. On top of that, I invested my money in something that was just scams, some other things that went belly up. And then some friends that lent money that disappeared, as I say, they became magicians and did a disappearing act. And then the worst part was that I had planned on basically my business model would be delivering training via webinars and selling my trainings and coaching and consulting via webinars. But I moved to Dominican Republic without having done proper research, because I lived in St. Lucia before in the Caribbean, and infrastructure was fine there. Power grid was fine, internet was fine, phone line was fine. So I assumed, hey, Dominican Republic is a much bigger country than St. Lucia. So I mean, it should be better, but it was like completely the opposite. Power went like sometimes 3, 4, 5 times a day,
Oh,
and so if you can imagine that you have built, put a lot of money and time into driving traffic to a webinar, that then suddenly the power goes and therefore the internet goes, right? Even with backup generators, just a split second, then the internet would go, right? And then it would take 2, 3 minutes to get back, and people have left and whatever. It was just a mess. So that was the reason why I had to just basically have a friend help me to get the tickets to go back to England. I was literally that broke, and came back and got back into the game of networking and marketing.
I want to delve into this whole topic of marketing a little bit more. And I know you talk about the fact that we are living in an era where we are bombarded by messages. We've got all these channels that we're dealing with. We walk around with our phones attached to our bodies. We are just seeing messages, advertisements, promotions nonstop. What's really
Yeah.
happening inside our brains as we are trying to filter through all of these messages?
That's a great question, and it really is become brutal to stand out, because what happens in our brain is that we just become numb to almost everything. We become used to seeing new things all the time, that what we need to do is really be more new, if that makes sense. We
Yes.
have to do something that completely stands out from the competition, because the way the brain is constructed is that we actually don't really pay attention to something that is the same as we've always seen, or if something is still. Like, if you imagine our primitive brain, if we're going like 10,000 years back and we're laying on a summer day in a field of grass, and there's really nothing going on around us, we can relax. But if there's something moving, then we have to pay attention, right? And how our brain is constructed, is that it pretty much only pays attention to things that are shifting. So if it's familiar, we don't need to pay attention. We might pay attention to it, but we don't have to. But if it's something that we haven't seen before, we have to biologically, literally brain has to pay attention to it. And that's why, for example, if you want to create a video, and you would take one video where you're just standing or sitting and explaining your stuff, um, as opposed to you put a camera in a car and saying exactly the same thing, you get way more engagement in the car, because there's more movement, right?
Keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just one aspect, that the eyes and the brain want to pay attention to something when there's movement. The only other way, if you are just like by yourself and talking, is that you have changes in scene, where you zoom in and out every 3, 4 seconds or something like that. So if you want to produce a video, for example, either you do it with a lot of movement in the video, or you do have to do a lot of changes in the scene afterwards to create that shift constantly to keep the attention.
That's a very interesting point, because I think some people wonder why, when they're watching a YouTube video or something on television, why, even if somebody is just sitting there talking to the camera, there are all these cuts. Even if they're very small, there are all these slight cuts to
Yep.
break things up. But that's exactly why they're
Yeah.
doing it. It's not necessarily a stylistic choice. It's because that's what it takes to keep the brain engaged.
Literally. Yeah, absolutely. The same thing applies with voice, right? There's not many people that are aware of this, but I was trained by one of the best voice coaches in the world. And that literally transformed my sales abilities. I mean, like almost nothing else. I mean, and it was overnight, especially when I was delivering a talk. So I was so frustrated before. I was like, I have the best content. Like, why are people not buying? And I just couldn't get it, right? And then I got this voice coach, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So if you have a monotone voice, same thing. People won't pay attention, right? It just becomes boring. So you have to vary your voice all the time. So that's just 5 things in your voice you actually have to vary, One of them is most people would realize is pitch. You go up and down. You have to have a song, but there's also tempo and stuff like that. So constant variation in your voice. Also, when you're talking, like if you were to be just a talking head, like we're doing here now, if we can get the hand movements in there. And I was thinking about this. Why is it actually that we were talking with our hands, and then suddenly realized it must be because we've learned that unless we actually move when we talk, that people are simply not going to listen to us. Right? I think that's the reason.
I think that actually segues well into the next question that I had, which was really about when businesses craft messages. I feel that too often the message is a fact-based message, and it's not a story, or it's not something that appeals to emotions.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh my God. Yeah.
yeah, emotions are really what drive behavior, right? Not facts, but too many businesses
Completely.
focus on the facts.
Yeah, completely. There might be a few exceptions where you have something that is such a unique and new feature that you want to lead with that relatively early in the marketing, but it's the exception. And I would say in 95% of the cases that I see, people are not using emotion nearly enough. Emotion, or I should say, stories. Stories are very, very powerful as well.
I
So
think
so yeah, people make decisions based on emotion, not based on facts.
that's probably one of the keys to Instagram success, is that when you've got that visual image, it evokes an emotion. And I think that's why the stories feature in Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and all those others have been so successful as well, is because it allows you to package up a little bit more of a story, obviously the name, and that drives more emotion, that drives more engagement. And I think we're going to see more of that. And that's one of the reasons why maybe there's more engagement on a platform like that than, let's say, a Twitter that's mostly text based.
Yeah. No doubt, no doubt. And you have to master video marketing. You literally, if you don't get on board with video marketing, and I don't have a video marketing agency, so that I'm not here to pitch. I've been saying this for years and years. And now actually, because of this voice coaching, I actually found that what I was doing was so unique in terms of presentation skills that I actually moved into teaching people how to be good on video. But I said it way before I even started moving into that space myself. So if you don't get involved in video marketing, you're going to be toast in 4, 5, 6 years. Literally, you will be toast.
I completely agree with that point. And I want to drill down into one of the things that you talk about, which is around business messaging. And you talk about 3 must-have things that you need to have for your messaging. And the first that you talk about is having that big idea. Drill into that a little bit more and talk about the big
Yeah.
idea.
Okay, so the big marketing idea is something that will make you completely stand out. It could be your USP, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, but because it's more about the uniqueness of your marketing campaign, right? So, for example, my new book, the new Marketing Manifesto. The big marketing idea for the new Marketing Manifesto is that there is that the way that we make decisions is completely irrational. Okay. And therefore, unless you know how the brain makes irrational decisions, you're not going to be able to market effectively to the brain. Okay. So I could have said, oh, just the secret to marketing success or whatever, how to attract more customers and blah, blah, blah. But that would just be the sameness, something completely same. So the big marketing idea behind this, so you understand this particular example, is that subtitle, by the way, for the book is How Irrational Marketing is Changing Everything You Know About Attracting Customers. So do you see, that's the big idea that separates myself from the rest. I could have said neuromarketing, which is also kind of a new thing, right? So that's another example of how you can create a big marketing idea around what it is that you do, instead of just saying, great marketing tactics or whatever.
So you sort of have a big idea, and then the idea is that once you get this idea, you have to create some sort of an irresistible message around that idea, correct?
Yeah. So basically, it's like in this example, right? Is saying that unless you like, you might know a lot about marketing, right? But forget all about that, because now there's a new thing, and it is that you have to understand irrational marketing. You have to understand the irrational brain. That becomes the new big idea for that creates the foundations for why you need this marketing book and not other marketing books. Does it make sense?
Oh, it does make sense. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
where did a lot of this research come from as you were putting together this book and the ideas behind it?
Oh, just tons of books. And training programs. I've been a little bit of a training seminar junkie, and I still am. I just constantly learn. I just bought into another training program that's almost $6,000. I just constantly learn. So throughout the years, I've been picking up lots of these things, facts and research, and just organizing it. And that's what's come into this new book, the new Marketing Manifesto.
I think over the last couple of years, especially, we have Russell Brunson to thank for this, is that people are talking about funnels, nonstop talking about funnels and creating a funnel to drive sales on your website. And this has obviously been big for a lot of solopreneurs who are creating courses, who are doing specific work, but it's true for businesses too, as well. They need to create a logical funnel for people to progress through in order to make their sale. What's your thought about how to create a funnel that actually converts?
Well, first of all, there's so much money left on the table from people that don't have a funnel and don't think about extending their funnels. It's like just one example. It's like if you send out a physical product, I can't tell you how many times I get something, like, especially these days where you shop more online. I get a product and okay, there's the product. And then there's nothing else. I'm like, they're completely missing an enormous opportunity to sell more, right? How about having something in there that says, hey, 10% off our uh, your next order if you subscribe to our newsletter. So a funnel is basically just a series, instead of just trying to sell to them once, is trying to construct a chain of products that fit together logically. Okay, and also, and this is the biggest error people make in general in business, I believe, especially in creating funnels, is that most companies just don't have a funnel. They literally just have a website and say, this is what we do. Okay, but nobody will buy from you any significant amount of purchase if they don't know you. Right. And that's why most businesses, and I see this so many times, I ask them, where do you get your clients from? It's mostly from referrals. Well, and I look at their website and it's like, well, no wonder, because nobody will go to a website from somebody that they don't know, they don't trust, and buy something from them. Again, unless they were referred by someone. So what you need to do is you need to prove your worth first, not trying to sell something, or at least not try to sell something of a high value, but give something away for free, or a very, very cheap trial, like $1 trial or something like that, because we have built-in resistance to buying everything. We're skeptical, right? So we want our suppliers to prove to us that they're worthy before we make a serious buying decision. That's why you should start with something free or very, very small, and then gradually build it up as the trust builds in that relationship.
So one
And
problem,
so far, sorry to interrupt you, but it's so funny that people completely understand the logic behind that. In the social world, you wouldn't go into a bar and walk up to someone and say, hey, you look like a really nice girl, do you want to marry me? Right? It's insane. People understand that in the social world, we have to have a chat first, get to see if we like each other a bit, then we offer a free drink, and then we go out and have a dinner together, and then goes further and further. It's a gradual process. Yet in business, most businesses seem to think they can make that big sale. They can ask for the marriage right away, but it just doesn't work.
so it's really understanding the life cycle of the sale, understanding what stage that prospect or customer is in, and being able to deliver the right message at the right stage of that sales cycle, correct?
Totally, totally, absolutely.
So, where are businesses failing here in terms of their messaging? When you sort of sit in front of the television or you get on social media, you pull up a Facebook or something like that, and you start to see some of the messages that are going out there, what comes across to you over and over again as ways that businesses are failing with their messaging?
Well, first of all, they don't lead with something um, that is safe enough for people to try out, right? Something for free. Okay, let's give away something for free. They basically ask for too much. It's too unsafe for somebody to make that choice. So that's the first thing. But the worst errors are being too bland, not being bold enough. Right? We've got to be bold. We've got to be different. You got to come up with something that's just more, in some ways, more creative, stands out. And it could be the smallest things. It doesn't have to be huge things. I'll just give you one example. Um, the headline, "Put more romance into your life," was improved by 300% increased response rate by putting or just by changing one letter in that headline, right? So, and it's putting an S at the end of put, so it becomes "puts more romance into your life." So sometimes it can be very, very small changes that yields enormously big results. But typically people are just too bland and they almost try to copy what they see competitors are doing, right? And I understand the logic is like, if they see competitors being successful, they say, well, if they're successful with this, let's do the same thing and we'll be the same. But that's just not how things typically work, because if your competitors out there with a message that they're doing well with, then why would people buy from you if you have the same message? They wouldn't, especially if you're the newbie in the market. If you're newer than them, people will buy from the more established ones. So if you're newer in the market, you've got to have a message that stands out. Be bold. Be specific as well. It's just unbelievable how many messages I see that is completely generic, like how to increase your sales. Oh wow, I've never heard that one before, right? It's
Right.
like, come up with something more unique, right? Just, I mean, this is a kind of a bad example, but you'll understand it. And from just increase your sales to um, new sales method increases your conversion by 53% in 6 days.
Yes.
Right. I mean, it could be the exact same strategy. And in fact, I've worked with many people when I start digging into it, where they said something like increase your sales, and I start digging into it, and I found out, wow, I mean, you have something really unique here, and which is proven to create these incredible results in a measurable, in a finite amount of time. It's like, why not say that? And like, oh yeah, I guess you're right, right? And then making that small twist, and you'll just see response rates go up by 50, 100%, no, sometimes 200, 300%. It's amazing. So being too bland, being too generic, also not putting your personality into it. Like, put your unique personality into it. Too many smaller companies, again, try to emulate big brands and being like very corporate, because they think, oh, we will look bigger, right? And it's such a big mistake. You want to be personal instead. So just to give you one example, for example, my email send off is, most people just, oh, you know you know thanks for contacting us, or have a great day, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I say, have a brilliant day and may the high conversion be with you, right?
Yes, I saw
So
that
that
actually.
okay, so first of all, it solidifies what I'm really about, is increasing conversion in marketing campaigns, but also it adds a little bit of humor. And that's just, I'm not saying that you should be humorous, but I'm saying you should be putting your personality into your marketing. And that's just my personality. I like humor. I like people that keep business light and fun, and like, lighthearted, fun. I like those kind of people. I like working with those kind of people, and I actually want to scare away people that are too stiff upper lip and too corporate and all that kind of stuff. I just don't like that. So put more personality into your marketing as well.
One of the things, there are a number of good things that you mentioned there. And one of the things that I couldn't agree more is that I think far too many businesses spend so much time and money generating leads, but not necessarily converting those leads. So the money goes out the door in terms of advertising and trying to develop awareness. And then they get people's interest. They come to the website, but they don't convert them. And some of the
Yeah,
simple things that you talked about, adding an S to the word puts, changing your email headline, changing the text on a website. I had a guest on a couple of weeks ago talking about conversion rate optimization. And it's sometimes the smallest little things that can have a measurable impact. And you move the needle 1, 2, 3% on your conversion rate. For some businesses, that could be a significant amount of money.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It could be the difference between a marketing campaign that bombs and one that succeeds. And also, because you have multiple steps. If you just add 1% here, 5% there, and 8% there, suddenly you have a massive, massive difference in the outcome. And I'm also shocked about how few people test their results. Right? They just don't test anything. It's just it's incredible.
What about
Enormous amount of
sales letters?
sales letters. What about them?
Yeah. So too often I feel that letters are left up to sales to write. And I think that sales letters are often an element of your marketing approach. And there needs to be some science behind what you do with a sales letter. Where do you see fault with a lot of the sales letters that you've seen? I know you help coach people in terms of writing those. What direction do you give people?
That's kind of same thing, being just too bland, general headlines. Or here's the classical one: having the name of your product or service as the headline. And it's like, if you're a small company, people don't care about your name. The only so where people go wrong is, again, they try to emulate big business marketing, but big business and small business marketing is two completely, utterly different things. With big business, what are you trying to do basically in marketing, apart from getting attention and building desire? You're trying to create trust. It's one of the biggest elements, and the ones that are actually overlooked the most, because small business don't understand it. That big business, the way big business create trust is they have big budgets and they plaster their brand and their name everywhere. So when you've seen it enough times, you get a feeling of familiarity and trust. Right. But we don't have the luxury as small business owners. We got to get people to take action right now. So because of that, you've got to make it easy for people to make a decision. Thereby, in the beginning, give them away something for free, and it has to be unique. Right. So again, the classical example: they put your name as the headline. Nobody cares about your name. It doesn't have any effect. It has to be a promise, right? That's another thing. I was doing a training a couple of weeks ago for an organization, and I was doing some research to explain to them the difference between what most people do and what you should be doing. And I used an example of business coach. I was looking for business coaches in London, and even the top ones that came up, and even the ones that I could see they were using paid advertising. Their headlines were something to the extent of just either just their name, their personal name, or business coach. But I don't care about their name or business coach. But if somebody said, proven way to guarantee you double your lead flow in 2 weeks or your money back. Now that's a promise, right? You have to give promises. People only take action if they're given value. And business coach is not value. Your name is not value, but double your lead flow in 2 weeks or it's free. That's a promise. That's a value. There's somebody offering me something of value that I could be interested in, at least. I might not be, but at least I could be interested in that value. Therefore, you have to lead with something really, really, really valuable in the beginning. Make
I
sense?
think it absolutely makes sense. And I think if you look to sort of old school marketing, right, when you had a air conditioner repairman or a plumber, it was very common for them to have their face plastered on the side of their service van or the car dealership that would run an ad during the evening news every day. And you had these goofy characters online that you would, or on TV that you would slowly get to know over time, or real estate agents that would put their pictures on their business card. All of these were techniques to build trust. And I think now we're moving into an era where businesses have to use tools like video to start to personalize their brand a little bit more. And I've talked to a number of business owners that have been very camera shy that don't want to get out and do that. But they said once that they sort of moved past that initial hurdle of just getting over the discomfort and starting to
Yeah.
attach a face to a brand, all of a sudden it's opened the floodgates because people start to understand. It humanizes people a little bit more, and that's where that trust
Yeah.
starts to get built, right?
It's so important. The personal trust is so important today. Like again, with small businesses, people more and more these days want to know who's behind the brand. They're buying the person and not the brand, right? They want to know what do these people stand for? Can I trust this person? And it's so funny. I get this all the time as well. That people say, "Oh, I'm not really comfortable on video." I said, "Well, are you comfortable being broke? Are you
Yeah.
comfortable going bankrupt?" Right? I said, "Well, which one are you least comfortable with, going broke or being on camera?" Right? Because there is no other choice. Like you learn to be good on camera, or you go broke. Maybe not happen this year or next year, but it's going to happen. There's going to be a point where you just have to. You have to show your personality.
I think
Right?
one of the
So
positive
lead,
upsides of the COVID pandemic, if there is any, is that it's forced a lot of people to remote work. Now people are
yeah,
doing video conferences like we're doing right now. You see television news anchors that are reporting from their living rooms.
yeah,
Sometimes the sound quality isn't great. Sometimes the video breaks up. Sometimes the cat walks, behind you in the picture. And I think what it has done is it's lowered the bar, right? It's lowered people's expectation of what that video experience
yeah,
has to be. And I think all of a sudden people are getting a little bit more used to letting people into their homes or just exposing their personality and realizing they don't have to be perfect. That sometimes those
yeah.
little funny quirks, the thing that you have on your wall or the dog barking at the mailman, that's all okay because that's just life.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you're so right. And it really is not about having that perfect thing, right? It's like show your personality, be you. And that's one of the best tips I can ever give you. And then get on video and become comfortable with. And also you will suck. Like if you haven't done video before, it's not possible to not be bad. You literally will be bad the first 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 times. But it's just learning experience. It's your tuition to become good at it. Because one day it will start to flow. It'll be more natural for you. And then suddenly one day you'll wake up and you'll be really good at it.
Patrick, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit more about your book, The New Marketing Manifesto. So first of all, congratulations. It's an effort to put a book together and to get it out. Understand that. So tell the
Yeah.
audience a little bit about it and also where they can get it.
Sure, it's interesting actually. It only actually come out because of COVID, because at the beginning of COVID, with the lockdown, I thought, well, and I need to create a lead magnet, a proper lead magnet. I'm in a lucky situation because of my network. I've never really actually needed a proper lead magnet because almost like my Meetup group is actually kind of my lead magnet, if that makes sense, because
Yeah.
they become members of the Meetup for free. And then they come to a very, very cheap event where they can meet other people, including me. And so that's where this beginning trust, started. But I wanted to develop something I can do more online. So I started writing this report, and I thought it was going to be like 9,000 words. And suddenly it was 14, and suddenly it was 17. I was like, wow, this is turning into a book. And that would never happen unless I was in lockdown. I just found myself to be incredibly creative, actually being locked away from other people. So that was interesting. And but as we talked about before, it really is about all the quirkiness of the brain, of how we make buying decisions. And people can go and get a free sample of it. The book is not completely done, but they can get a free sample with three free chapters on patrickmpowers.com. Patrick with a CK and then M like in mother, powers.com. It's right there on the top of the page. Just click on the link that says get a free sample. And one of the chapters, they're all good, but one of the chapters is seriously good. And it actually is about how do you stand out even if you're doing completely the same as your competitors. Like if you're completely and utterly the same as your competitors, how do you actually stand out for them to look like you are completely fresh and new in the market? Not necessarily new in the market, but you're doing something unique.
Patrick, I think
So
messaging
again,
is so important. And I think, I will go download this myself and take a look at what you've got there. What were you going to say?
no, it's just, again, just reiterating patrickmpowers.com. That's it.
No, that's great. I'll make sure to link up that in the show notes so that everybody has access to that. So it sounds fascinating. And I thought you've had some really insightful tips on messaging and what businesses need to do to stand out, and especially not trying to copy their bigger, larger competitors, but have a personality, build that trust. I think that's great advice. Patrick, thank you so much for being a guest on the show today. And like I said, I'll make sure to have all your social links and everything in the show notes so that people can find you online.
Brilliant. It was a pleasure, Eric. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you again.